This Guy's Garage. Like and subscribe.
Mr. Speaker, on page 74 of Budget 2024, it's titled Halal Mortgages. This isn't the first time the federal government has considered Sharia-compliant mortgages. In 2009, CMHC had commissioned a study on the subject. The reaction of the Muslim Canadian Congress at the time had been clear. I quote its founder, Tarek Fatah, "This, halal mortgages, targets vulnerable and marginalized Muslims who are told that if they do business with non-Muslims, they will go to hell." My question is simple, Mr. Speaker. Who exactly is this measure aimed at? The Honourable Minister of National Revenue. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a financial tool that has not been proposed by the government, but that exists. What we've said is that we are going to study this matter to ensure that it is done following the rules. That's all. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Drummond. Mr. Speaker, on Tuesday, the Quebec lieutenant was lecturing us. Canada is a secular country. We care about secularism too. We're Quebecers. They just want to pick a fight. You know the drill, Mr. Speaker. So if the Liberals are so in favour of secularism, can they tell us why they want to move the election date due to a religious holiday and why they want to introduce elements of Sharia into the mortgage rules of this supposedly secular country? The Honourable Minister of National Revenue. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once again, this is a financial tool that is absolutely not put forward by our government. We are looking at the product. We want to know if it is fair, if it follows the rules. We are just going to study this matter. There's no intention from our government to support. We just want to make sure it's fair. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Drummond. Then why is it in the budget, Mr. Speaker? I don't understand. Anyways, Mr. Speaker, we are witnessing a clash of values. While the Minister of Justice intends to use Quebecers' money to challenge Quebec's law on the secular nature of the state, the Liberals are thinking of incorporating more religions into Canadian law. I will once again quote Tarek Fatah, founder of the Muslim Canadian Congress, on halal mortgages. We see this as the financial front of the Islamist movement. These are serious words. Will the government admit that it is not defending secularism, but rather bringing more and more religion into the affairs of the state? The Honourable Minister of National Revenue. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once again, we are talking about financial tools that are available on the market. This is in no way a product proposed by our government. We want to ensure that this financial product that is on the market is not breaking the rules. Thank you.
Member from Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
After 9 years of this NDP Liberal Prime Minister, he's not worth the cost or the corruption of his $60 million Arrive scam. The Prime Minister's favourite scamster told the House yesterday that his home had been raided by the RCMP for his role in this latest scandal. But he also told the House that the NDP Liberal government hasn't asked for a penny back of the ill-gotten gains. Now, the House has ordered it. Why hasn't this Prime Minister enforced it? When will Canadians get their money back?
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, as my honourable friend knows, there are internal audits being conducted by the CBSA. The RCMP are looking into this matter. The Auditor General had done a report, and we've accepted the recommendations, and my colleague from Public Services and Procurement has changed many of the rules around these types of contracts. Mr. Speaker, we've also said from the beginning, anybody who abused taxpayers' money will face the consequences. And of course, the government will always seek to recover taxpayers' money that was spent inappropriately.
The Honourable Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Island and Rideau Lakes.
Well, I'm pleased to hear from the latest candidate to be the next leader of the Liberal Party that he's interested in getting Canadians their money back, because the current Prime Minister has so far refused. And that's what we heard from GC Strategy's frontman yesterday, after telling us that for playing his role in the Prime Minister's latest scandal, his house has been raided, but the Prime Minister has still failed to get Canadians their money back. The House has ordered it, and we just want to know when the Prime Minister and the next person auditioning for his job are going to enforce it. When do Canadians get the cash back?
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Speaker, again, my honourable friend knows that there are a series of internal audits being conducted with respect to this matter. He referred to the RCMP that are also seized with many of these issues. They took a certain action yesterday, which we heard about in this House as well, Mr. Speaker. I think the honourable member should have some confidence that those who have abused taxpayers' money will face the consequences. And if taxpayers' money has been misplaced or mishandled, of course the government will seek to recover those funds.
The honourable member from Thornhill.
Liberal NDP government and their soft on crime policies, Canada's criminal justice system is broken and Canadians feel unsafe in their neighborhoods. Here's where we're at today. The biggest gold heist in Canadian history, $20 million gone, several suspects involved with gangs and gun running, and they're already out on bail 24 hours later. Wow. Why does this government think that gangsters who steal millions of dollars deserve to be released back into the community?
That's right.
The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General for Canada.
I thank the member opposite for that important question. I point out to her and to other members of this chamber that we passed significant bail reform legislation in this chamber with the cooperation of premiers around the country and law enforcement officials around the country. What I would also point out to the member opposite is that I share her concern for organized criminality. In fact, I share it so much so that the Budget Implementation Act contains measures that will address money laundering and address financing through criminality. I desperately hope that that member and all of her colleagues will be supporting that aspect of our legislation and helping us to tackle organized crime and money laundering.
Before I continue with question period for the honourable member for Thornhill, who will want to ask her question, I'm going to ask the member from Grand River Miramichi, as well as the member from Dufferin-Caledon, please, to wait your turn before taking the floor. The honourable member from Thornhill.
Speaker, it didn't work because Liberals do think that these criminals should be released back into the community because they passed the very bills that made it possible. And they are the reason why gun runners and gangsters who steal millions of dollars in gold get turned back loose into the streets. Did the Prime Minister get a little golden nugget from these criminals to pass his catch and release Bill C-75? When will they finally reverse these policies, protect our communities, and keep criminals in jail where they belong?
Yeah. The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, our resolve to ensure communities are safe is strong. What we did in the past 18 months is we've enacted legislation that addresses the acute causes of crime. What we've done in the past 18 months is ensure that the bail reform system deals with violent, serious offenders, and we had the support of law enforcement right around this country. The other thing that law enforcement has been talking to me and my colleague, the Minister of Public Safety, about is the acute need to address organized criminality in this country. Previous times legislation has been in this chamber, they have voted against such legislative initiatives. They have one more opportunity, but they've already announced they won't be supporting us getting tough with money laundering and organized criminality.
The honourable member from Thornhill.
Speaker, they're out on bail less than 24 hours later. The Liberal incompetence touches so much more than the criminal justice system. You might need a nugget of gold to buy gas in Ontario today. After 9 years of this Prime Minister, his carbon tax prices have hiked the cost of gas by 14 cents a litre today. If he refuses to call a carbon tax election, will the Prime Minister put a pause on his punishing hikes over the summer so that Canadians can take a little road trip, or will he do everyone in this country a favour and take a permanent road trip so the Canadians can afford to live?
Yeah. The Honourable Minister for Public Services and Procurement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 8 out of 10 families receive more in the carbon rebate than they pay on the carbon price. The reason is that all the proceeds from the carbon price are sent back to Canadians. Wealthier families pay more, so low-income and middle-class families get more, Mr. Speaker. 8 out of 10 families get more from the carbon rebate than they pay on the carbon price. In addition to that, obviously, that reduces pollution, that reduces the cost of climate change.
In Ontario went into full panic mode last night, lining up to fill up because gas was going up to $1.80 a litre, the highest it's been in 2 years. 18 cents in every litre of gas is because of this NDP Liberal Prime Minister's carbon tax. And by the time the costly coalition is done, the carbon tax will quadruple, rising 61 cents a litre. After 9 years and an extra $10 to fill up overnight, the Prime Minister is not worth the cost. How about cancelling the carbon tax on gas this summer so Canadians can at least enjoy that time-honoured tradition of a road trip?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, when the Conservatives blame the cost of living crisis on carbon pricing and proven emissions reduction strategies, they're only serving the greedy corporate interest of billionaire grocery and oil and gas executives. There's no rebate on the provincial gas tax that Danielle Smith jacked up on Albertans on April 1st. There's no rebate on the summer fuel surcharge or excessive oil and gas profits. But the Canada carbon rebate is 4 quarterly payments per year as an incentive to use a little less and get a little bit more tax-free cash in your account 4 times a year. These Conservatives don't have a plan for affordability. They don't have a plan for the environment. They consistently prioritize the corporate interest of their greedy oil and gas masters over the needs of everyday Canadians.
Order. The honourable member from Barrie-Innisfil.
If that member is so confident in the carbon tax, I dare him to convince the Prime Minister to call an election. The increase caused so much panic and long lines at gas stations across Barrie-Innisfil last night. Costco was so busy that cars were lined up in live traffic on Mapleview. The NDP Liberal government plans on quadrupling the carbon tax to 61 cents a litre. The lineups and panic across the country shows that after 9 years, Canadians can no longer afford this costly coalition. Why don't they just come and live with reality and axe the carbon tax so Canadians can afford life?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Speaker, there was an election on the carbon tax. In fact, there was 3 of them. We won them all. And last election, they ran on a promise with Aaron O'Toole. Remember that? Remember his little cover? He cared about the environment for a change. Conservatives all of a sudden cared about climate change, and they were going to use carbon pricing to lower emissions. Well, they lost. But they still all ran on that promise to price carbon. But when this new member of Parliament, the leader of the Conservatives, the petro puppet of Carleton, came in play,
Order. Colleagues, we can be pointed, we can be passionate, and we can be many things. But what we must always remain to do is to make sure that we're carrying ourselves and we refer to each other politely. The honourable member, the honourable parliamentary secretary knows that. I'm going to ask him just to withdraw that part of his statement, and then he has 5 seconds to finish his question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. These Conservatives can dish it out, but they ran on carbon pricing, and they've got no integrity for fighting it at this stage.
I did ask the honourable parliamentary secretary just to withdraw that part of his statement so that we could stay on the right side of being polite. The honourable parliamentary secretary.
Mr. Speaker, I apologize for causing a little bit of disruption. It seems that the Conservatives